Bueno, buenos días a todos y a todas. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Hoy vamos a tratar la convocatoria de proyectos postdoctorales, redes de doctorado de 2023. Y bueno, quería empezar muy brevemente. Yo voy a hacer la palabra enseguida a nuestros invitados de hoy, diciendo en castellano un par de cositas y luego cambiaremos al inglés. En primer lugar, disculpar la ausencia, en este caso de Borja o de Esther, que normalmente son quienes abren este tipo de charlas cuando empezamos a dar apoyo y difusión a las convocatorias de MSCA, pero en este caso, como sabéis que la presidencia española ya ha empezado, parte de la fundación está justamente ahora mismo en una conferencia en Barcelona. Así que en ese sentido, pues bueno, estamos los puntos y las puntos nacionales de contacto aquí hoy para a vuestra disposición. Y por otra parte también deciros que voy, como siempre hago, voy a seguir a compartir pantalla para que veáis un poco la dinámica de la reunión en la que cogeremos las preguntas por Mentimeter. Tendremos una primera charla explicando la convocatoria y luego ya los casos de éxito. Pedir disculpas también porque nosotros somos bastante aférrimos del balance de género. En esta ocasión todos los ponentes son hombres, pero es lo que nos ha salido en esta sesión, pero también deciros que sabéis que lo tenemos en cuenta. So with no delay, I would like to start by thanking all of speakers. Today we have excellent speakers coming from the Research Executive Agency. Thank you very much, Julien, for being here with us today and explaining the call. And I would also like to thank both Johan and Victor, who hasn't joined us yet, who are the two success cases from the Spanish institution coordinated doctoral network project. I will start now by sharing my screen. We will do part of the session in English and maybe part in Spanish with the two success cases. But we will, at the end of Julian's presentation, we will take your questions and we will try to between all of us, answer them. So let me just bear with me 1 second and I will share with you both in the chat and in the screen the Mentimeter so that you can all have it with you, start writing your question in. So allow me 1 second. So here it is. I don't know if you can see the screen, if my colleagues can confirm it.
Yes, we can see it, but it's okay, perfect, full screen.
That's it, right now. So this is the agenda for today. So as I just mentioned, Julien from the Research Executive Agency will now explain the novelties of the 2023 call and the rules for participation. And then a section on question and answers will follow. Then we will listen to both Johan and Victor to successful projects, and then we will launch a second questions and answer questions. And then I will also like to thank both Xavi and Jesus who are here with me to support the session, my two NCP colleagues. And here is the Mentimeter, okay? So I will write right now in the chat also the link and the code so that you can access that, but here is for you on screen. And that's the way that we're going to be taking all the questions for you. So I think that's all from me from the start. And now I would like to give the floor to Julien. Julien, thank you very much for being here with us. And I think you should have received, that's it. We can see your screen perfectly. So thank you very much. Julien Giordani from the Research Executive Agency will now present the Doctoral Networks for 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cristina. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, my level of Spanish is almost non-existent, so I will do everything in English. I hope you can see my screen. So today I'm going to present you basically in a nutshell, the Doctoral Networks program, and in particular, the Doctoral Networks 2023 call that is currently open, and the deadline to submit the proposal is the 28th of November. So still a bit of time ahead of you. And basically, yes, I will tell you all you need to know about the Doctoral Networks. So, yes, okay. So very broadly about the MSCA work program. So one thing that's really important is that the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions is really focused on the human capital development. So it's really about the researchers' training, the development of their skill, the development of their career at all stages of their career. So you have the doctoral networks at the doctoral level, you also have the postdoctoral fellowships, you have the staff exchanges later on, so it covers all careers of researchers. What you also need to know is that it's a bottom-up approach. Bottom-up meaning that you can submit a proposal in any field of science that you want. So there is no prescribed call for proposal with very prescriptive topics. You can come up with any kind of proposal in any field of research. You just have to choose one of the 8 scientific panels that we have for your proposal. A strong focus is on mobility. So the 3 kinds of mobility: international mobility, intersectoral mobility, and interdisciplinary mobility. The idea is also to have, talking about intersectoral mobility, to have a strong collaboration between the academic world and the industries and SMEs. The idea is to offer attractive working and employment conditions through these programs. And the more long-term goal is to have a structuring impact on organizations that apply to these MSCA programs. So what are doctoral networks? If I had to summarize in one slide, what is a doctoral network? It's one consortium, so several entities. They can be universities, research centers, SMEs, and this consortium of entities will propose an overall coherent research project and also a number of interlinked individual PhD research projects, right, that will feed into this overall coherent research project. And this PhD project are for PhD fellows that they will recruit in the future. So at the time where they submit the proposal, they do not know yet who the PhD students will be. They're not there yet, and they will have to recruit them in the future following an open, transparent, and fair recruitment procedure. So this is what this is about. So this is not an individual fellowship for individual master's degree students that want to apply for a PhD fellowship. That's not what it is. This is really a consortium of entities proposing PhD research projects. Now, what's the expected outcome? I mean, we expect benefits from both the doctoral candidates. So doctoral candidates is a term we use for the PhD fellows that you will recruit in the future, and for the participating organization. The idea is really as I said before, human capital development. So the idea is to train creative, entrepreneurial, innovative, and resilient doctoral candidates, convert knowledge and ideas into products and services, face current and future challenges. So it's really to train the fellows, expose them to both sectors, the academic and the non-academic sectors, offer training to them in research, offer training through research as well, but also other kind of training and competencies that will be useful for them for their long-term employability. Long-term employability in the academia, but not only in the academia, also outside of the academia. The idea is to focus on research skills, but also transferable skills that are sometimes called the soft skills. And there's lots of different words for this kind of skills. The idea is that they will have secondment, so you will harness the power of the network by making people move between the different institutions. These fellows should have a career development plan that should be updated on a regular basis. They should be appropriately supervised because they're doing their PhD there, so they should be supervised. And the idea also is to have an enhanced knowledge transfer and cooperation between the sectors and between the disciplines. What's in it for Europe is basically, again, I repeat myself, to strengthen Europe's human capital base by training doctoral candidates, improve the attractiveness of the research careers in Europe, enhance the circulation. So this is all about the mobility, so talent, knowledge circulation through the 3 kinds of mobility, ensure sustainable competitiveness of Europe, collaboration between academic and non-academic, the last thing, foster the culture of open science. I would just like to say that this is not only for MSCA, it's an overall Horizon Europe requirement, the open science requirement. So this is the overall picture, the background of what are doctoral networks and what it is that they're trying to achieve, that we're trying to achieve through funding these programs. Now, doctoral networks they come in 3 flavors. The doctoral networks period, so I will call them standard doctoral network, so it's clearer. There are the doctoral networks industrial doctorates, so DNIDs. There are the scientific panel, let's say physics, for instance. All 3 modes, so DN, DNID, DNJDs, they compete within each other. So in the past, we had dedicated budget for industrial doctorates and joint doctorates. This is no longer the case since the beginning of Horizon Europe. All 3 modes compete within the same scientific panel. Now, what's new for 2023? For 2023, the biggest novelties are that all modes can request up to 540 person month. So this is for all the implementation modes, DN, DNID, DNJDs. So in the past, for DN, it was capped to 360. Now it's 540, sorry, for everyone. The duration of the program, we have to distinguish the duration of the fellowship for the doctoral candidates and the duration of the project, so the DN project. So the overall projects can last maximum 4 years for the standard and industrial doctorates and 5 years for the joint doctorates. And the reason for that is the duration of the fellowship. So when you set up your projects, you will offer fellowships to your doctoral candidates, and this fellowship can last minimum 3 months, maximum 36 months for standard doctoral networks and IDs. And for joint doctorates, the big novelty is that you can offer them a fellowship up to 48 months, right? So up to 4 years. Now, in terms of secondments, I told you that fellows could be employed in one entity and then be seconded to another one. This is worldwide, they can go anywhere, but it's limited to 1/3 of the fellowship duration for standard DN. So that means 12 months for the 36 months fellowship. But for IDs and JDs, industrial and joint doctorates, there is no limitation for this secondment time. Now, entering into a bit more details for the industrial doctorates. The industrial doctorates, as the name suggests, has a strong non-academic sector component, and the fellows recruited in these projects, they need to spend at least 50% of their time in the non-academic sector. Okay. In parentheses, it says that I will tell you more about that later. And in
yeah,
that,
sorry, Julia, yes? I don't know if you can hear me, because that sometimes we do lose the sound of your presentation, or we lose your sound. So what I was going to do is I'm just going to turn off your camera just to see if that improves a little bit. Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
No problem. So yes, for these fellows in the industrial doctorates, the academic and non-academic organizations have to jointly supervise the fellow. And now for joint doctorates, the idea is to have a stronger structuring effect on the doctoral programs, and the idea is that all fellows have to be enrolled in a joint, a double, or a multiple PhDs, delivered by entities from at least 2 member states or associated countries. And the idea is that there should be joint admission, selection, training, governance, supervision of the fellows. And if you want to go for a joint doctorate, you have to submit a letter of pre-agreement in your proposal. There's a template for that in the proposal template. a letter of pre-agreement to deliver this joint double or multiple degrees. I talked about academic sector, non-academic sector. What does it mean in practice? So for our definition, MSCA definition of academic sector, it's public or private higher education establishment, public or private non-profit research organization, and international European research organization. This is a definition of the academic sector for us. The non-academic sector is a definition by exclusion, is basically any entity that's not in the academic sector list. So I insist a bit on that point because you will see here that academic and non-academic has nothing to do with public or private. Actually, it has more to do with the profit or non-profit side of things. So you see that a private non-profit research organization is considered an academic sector. So pay attention to that when you want to submit an industrial doctorate, where the fellows need to spend at least 50% of the time in the non-academic sector. A private non-profit research organization is not a non-academic sector entity. For us, it's an academic sector entity. Now, about this joint double multiple degrees, what's the definition? The definition of a joint degree is a single diploma that's issued by at least 2 different academic institutions from 2 different countries. And a double or multiple are separate diplomas, basically 2 or more separate diplomas issued by 2 or more higher education establishments from different countries. Again, there are letter of pre-agreements in the joint doctorates template that you can find on the portal if you want to submit a proposal. There's a number of eligibility rules, and these eligibility rules basically are there to support the policy objectives of the Marie Curie actions. So in terms of your consortium, you need to have at least 3 independent legal entities. And they have to be all established in a different EU member state or associated country. And out of these 3, at least 1 has to be from an EU member state. So this is the minimum. Of course, you can go higher than that, and most projects, they have more than 3 legal entities, but this is the minimum. Also, all the beneficiaries must recruit at least 1 doctoral candidate and host and supervise them. So if you have an entity that wants to participate but does not want to recruit a doctoral candidate, they cannot be beneficiary, but they can participate differently as an associated partner. I will tell you more about that later. There's a rule about that is there to ensure the geographical diversity of the consortium. So no more than 40% of the EU contribution should go to beneficiaries of the same country. Pay attention that this is about the budget. It's not about the number of fellows. It's really about the budget. I'm saying that because you will see later that the fellows are paid differently depending on the countries in which they are recruited. Just because the cost of living in Sweden is higher than the cost of living in Portugal, then the salary is different. So if you just look at the number of months, you will not have the right figure. So 40% is about the budget. There are specific eligibility conditions for industrial and joint doctorates that I told you earlier, 50% in the academic sector, for instance. And there are also resubmission restrictions. So if you submitted a proposal in the last call, the 2022 call, and your score was below 80%, you cannot resubmit.
So we seem to lose the connection. Let me just try and see. Julien, can you hear us? Bueno, parece que tenemos... Hello, Julien, can you hear us?
Yes, you cannot hear me anymore?
We couldn't hear you at all for a few seconds there.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know. Well, we'll keep going.
If it's my network or, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. I told you about beneficiaries and associated partner. What's the difference? So beneficiaries, as the name suggests, they benefit directly from the funds, from the EU funds. They sign the grant agreement. They recruit the researchers. They have to recruit the researchers, and they claim costs directly to us. The associated partners, on the other hand, they're kind of an add-on to the consortium, and they don't sign the grant agreement. They cannot recruit the researchers. They cannot directly claim costs, but they can participate in the project by, for instance, providing training. They can also host seconded researchers. They can participate in the supervisory board. So they can do all these kinds of things. And I said they cannot directly claim cost, but they can indirectly claim cost. And this is basically, I will tell you in a few minutes, the budget to run the project can be redistributed amongst the consortium, and it's possible to channel some funding to the associated partners for them to cover the cost of hosting seconded researchers, for instance, or to cover the cost of providing training. Okay, audio connection restored. I told you about the different entities that could participate, but not all of them are automatically eligible for funding. So basically, the member states and the associated countries to Horizon Europe, they are automatically eligible for funding. The low and middle income countries, they're also automatically eligible for funding. If you want to have a list of these countries, you can go to the Horizon Europe program guide, where you have a list of all the countries automatically eligible for funding. Now, who's not eligible for funding automatically? Those are the high income third countries like Japan, the US, Canada, Australia. They're not, they can participate, but they cannot get funding. They can only get funding exceptionally if their participation is essential for the project. And by essential, we mean, for instance, if they have access to a specific database that only they have access to, or a specific know-how that only they have access to. And this will be assessed by the evaluators. So the evaluators will assess whether this, let's say, US entity should receive funding or not. And because it's exceptional, most of the time they don't. So if they still want to participate, they have to participate from their own funds. So they have to bring their own funds into the project. All right. So this is a quick recap. One thing that's important, Switzerland is not an associated country. All right. And for the UK, for the purpose of the evaluation, they are considered as an associated country. And then, like last year, basically, at the time of signing the grant agreement, if the proposal is successful, then we will need to see whether the UK signed the association agreement with the Horizon Europe. But they can participate, they can submit proposals, they can be beneficiaries for the purpose of the evaluation. So these were the eligibility conditions for the entities. Now, what about the fellows that you will recruit later? So they have to be doctoral candidates. And what we mean by that is that they should not already have a doctoral degree at the day. Okay, I stopped speaking because the audio connection was lost. Now I start speaking again, so you didn't lose anything. They have to be recruited following an open, merit-based and transparent recruitment procedure. So this is important. This can be audited. This is an eligibility criterion. So basically, that means that the idea is that, in a traditional PhD, you recruit fellows usually from your own pool of master degree students. You cannot do that anymore in the doctoral network. You have to set up an open, merit-based and transparent recruitment process, international one, and you have to be able to show to an auditor that the person you recruited was recruited following again, an open, merit-based and transparent recruitment procedure. So with rules that you defined ex ante before, and that there were no conflict of interest with the person you recruited. All these fellows, they have to be enrolled in a doctoral program in at least one EU member state or associated country. So this is important because I told you low-income countries, they could participate and get funding. That is true, but the fellows they will recruit has to be enrolled in a PhD from at least one member state or associated country. So take that into account. It might be a bit tricky sometimes. If it's a joint doctorate, they have to be enrolled in a doctoral program from at least 2 EU member state or associated country. Now, these fellows, they can be of any nationality in the world. So they don't have to be European, they can be from any nationality in the world. And we see in many projects, fellows from India, from China, from Argentina, from anywhere in the world, really. But they have to abide to the mobility rule. And the mobility rule states that they must not have resided or carried out their main activity in the country where they are recruited for more than 12 months in the previous 3 years, right? So this is also to ensure that the entities don't recruit fellows from their own institution. Basically, it's another barrier. This, I will not talk about it because you will have the slides. It's just a big summary of all the eligibility rules. You see everything in there. You can read it at your own pace. And now we'll talk about the funding mechanism. So funding mechanism for MSCA, it's rather straightforward. It's a simplified approach based on unit. So an entity that recruits a fellow for 36 months will receive 36 units. 1 unit is 1 person month of each eligible researcher, okay? And it's reimbursed 100%. So 1 month, 1 unit, as simple as that. And a consortium can recruit fellows and request a maximum of 540 person month. So that means 15 fellows for each 36 months. That's 540 person months in total. Audio connection restored. Okay, so on the left side is everything for the recruited researchers. So this has to go to the fellow in full. So living allowance is their salary, mobility allowance, they all need to have that because they need to undergo mobility in order to start to be eligible for the program. Family allowance, if it's applicable to them. All of that need to go to the recruited researcher. I will not talk about long-term leave allowance or special needs because this is ad hoc during the implementation of the project if the need arises. On the right side is the money, is the funding to basically run the project. So it's research, training, networking contribution, and management and indirect contribution. So that's 2,800 euros per month of fellowship duration to run the project, buy consumables, equipment, computing time, whatever. And this part of the funding, this can be redistributed amongst the consortium. So it could also go to an associated partner who hosts seconded fellows, for instance. So this is how associated partners this is how associated partner can indirectly get funding. How are these proposals evaluated? So we operate on a peer review basis. So your proposals, if you submit one, will be evaluated by independent experts that we contract for. We give them a contract to do the evaluations. Each proposal is evaluated by 3 different and independent experts. And the way it works is that there's a first stage of individual evaluation where 3 experts will assess your proposals independently. So independently, that means that they don't know who the other two experts are. They just work alone on their evaluation. And at the end, they will provide an individual evaluation report that gives comments on all the evaluation criteria. When this is done, then the three experts, they gather in a consensus group and they discuss, and they have to agree through consensus, the three of them, on a consensus set of assessments, so of comments, and on the score. So at the end, they should all agree on the consensus report, and the consensus report is what you get as an outcome of the evaluation. So peer review and consensus, those are the main two keywords from the evaluation. 3 independent experts, then the consensus group, and they all have to agree. Now, of course, different experts can see your proposals from different angles, depending on their background, and it's okay for them to change their mind, to revise their opinion. This is why we have the consensus. This is in terms of timeline. We receive the proposal, check eligibility, individual evaluation, then the consensus group I told you about. And then at the very end of the process, there is a panel review with all the experts that basically checks for a whole week the consistency of treatment of proposal across across the panel, right? And then at the end, we have the ranking list, and we give you the good news or the bad news that you've been proposed for funding. Those are the award criteria. I will not go through them one by one because it's quite long, but you can see them in the work program. You can also see them if you go to the funding and tender portal, the place where you will submit your proposal. You have a lot of documents, and you also have the award criteria. So to make a long story short, you have 3 criteria: excellence, impact, and implementation, and they all have different weighting. So excellence counts for 50%, impact for 30%, and implementation for 20%. And you have different sub-criteria within these criteria. And basically, you'll see that the proposal template follows the order of these sub-criteria, okay? How do you apply? Obviously, I should change the slide because I still have a print screen from 2021, but basically, if you go to the funding and tender opportunities portal, there is a search engine, you type DN, you press enter, you will have all the doctoral networks call, you click on the 2023, and then you will have here all the useful documents for you to prepare your proposal. You have the work program, its annexes, you have the guide for applicant that explains a bit more some aspects of the proposal. You have the okay, and we're back. You have the proposal templates and the frequently asked question. I strongly advise you to really have a deep look at the proposal template. Each year, I mean, this year, the template is slightly different from last year. Please use the latest template. And within the template, there are some instructions how to fill it in. So in the past, in the guide for applicants, you had all the explanation there. Now you have the explanation within the template. So you have the template in the funding and tender portal. So we have part A. Part A is more an administrative part. And you have the part B, which is basically a PDF that you can download the Word document of the template, you fill it in, make it a PDF, and then you upload it again in the system. And there's 2 parts to part B, part B1 and part B2. Pay attention that there is a page limit for part B1. So if you go above the page limit, it will be blanked out and not seen by the expert. They cannot see it. Even if they wanted to, they cannot see it. This is clearly written in the template and in the guide for applicant. So a few words of advice: read the work program and the guidance documents carefully, use the proposal template, read the evaluation forms. So you is back, you will be evaluated on this evaluation criteria, so read them so you know what's expected from you, and don't underestimate any part of the proposal. It's quite a competitive program. There are 3 evaluation criteria, and basically to make the cut, you need to be excellent in all 3 criteria. So excellence, impact, and implementation. Write each section clearly and in coherence with the other sections. Avoid contradictions between different parts of your proposal. Give it to someone else to read it. It's always a good idea. Consult your national contact points. They are a wealth of information and they are very experienced. Duly complete part A and start prepare early. Don't leave submission for the last minute. But if there was one thing that would summarize it all, think like an evaluator, write for an evaluator. Read the evaluation form and think, if you were the evaluator, how would you assess your own proposal? All right. Resources, so you have lots of resources available. The one-stop shop is really the Funding and Tenders Opportunities portal, because there, if you go to the DN 2023 page, call page, you will have the link to everything. So the work program, we organized an info day as well. I think Christina will share it with you. Very important, I advise you to read the MSCA guidelines on supervision. You should also read the code of conduct for the recruitment of researchers. These are all policy documents that are very important for your proposal. If you have any questions, of course, you can ask your national contact points. You can also contact the Research Inquiry Service. You can look at the frequently asked questions on the website. There was also almost 100 questions that were answered through the info day we did. And share my webcam, sure, no problem. And yes, you can find a lot of answers to that question. Now, these experts that we hire to do the evaluation, you could be one of them. The only thing is that you have to register yourself in our database. It's free. You just have to fill in your CV. So if you go to the Funding and Tender Opportunities, as I said, it's a one-stop shop for everything. Work as an expert, your data and your CV in here. And that's it. I hope that it was useful and that the sound was not that bad. So I could see actually sometimes a message that says the audio connection was lost, so I stopped speaking, and then when it was restored, I started speaking again. So normally, you should not have lost anything.
Hello, Julian. Thank you. Actually, it's a pity because we did lose. It was breaking up a few times, but you did stop when you. I don't know how you saw in your own screen that you were losing the sound. So sorry about that. We always say that.
At some point, I got a message. Audio connection was lost.
Yes, we normally go to webinar. It's very stable. We all say that. I remember when we were during the pandemic, we did like webinars for more than 900 people at the same time. So it's very stable from all over the world. So let's see. Anyway, let's go because we're on time. Let's go to the different questions that were sent by the attendees. So I don't know if you can see them on screen. You can. Okay.
Yes.
Then. So I will just be reading them to you. And then, or maybe the rest of the NCPs, if you feel that we can also contribute to that. But let's start. So people are wondering about this change, about these 540 person months, that change actually from the previous work program, and they're asking now if this EU contribution now limited to the 540 person months for all types of DN, will that limit be modified again in the next work program?
Not that I know of. I mean, I cannot swear, but it's not in the discussions at the moment, at least.
It's not indeed, yes. So right now, for the time being, but this is the call that we are all interested in. So let's see what the future holds. But right now, this is not discussion for that. So since now, in a standard network of up to 15 doctoral candidates can be hired, do you recommend that the networks adapt to this maximum, especially those that will be a resubmission?
I would not recommend in one way or the other. I mean,
we lose you again.
Okay, audio is back again. We see many successful proposals that turn into projects that do not request the maximum. So it's not, you don't get additional points if you request more, you don't get additional points if you request less. Basically, it has to be commensurate with what you want to do in the project. So maybe if it's easier for you to handle a smaller network, that's fine. It will not be held against you. It has to be, depends what the scope of your project. So nothing, yeah, there's no rule for that, really.
Exactly, it has to fit the project and ensure that you have the number of doctoral candidates that really are meant to be there in the projects. Okay, we are going into some specific eligibility criteria rules that we can maybe ourselves as NCPs, if you wish, because I can see we lost again the image of Julien. Can a researcher recruited for 48 months in a country where doctorate lasts oh no, it's not about eligibility, okay. Can a researcher be recruited for 48 months in a country where the doctorate lasts 3 years? Julien, I don't know if you're there.
Yes, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
So yeah, it's possible in joint doctorates only, but it is possible, yes.
Okay. Regarding the document Part B, how specific should it be with regards to the selection of supervisors for each PhD student and the planned secondments? Well, it has to be specific.
Well, yes, I mean, okay, supervisors, this is assessed, this is one of the sub-criteria is about the quality of the supervision. So there you will need to explain the experience that the supervisors have, their time commitment and things like that. So this has to be rather specific. Now the planned secondment, well, as specific as you can be at the time of writing the proposal. Now we know that things can change then when the project kicks in. If connection back. So it has as precise as you can do at the time of submitting the proposal. Now, of course, pay attention to there are some eligibility with the secondment time. So for a standard DN, do not ask for more than 1/3 duration for secondment. For industrial doctorates, you need to have fellows spending more than 50%, I mean, at least 50% in the non-academic sector. So you need to put that in the proposal, and during the project it has to be like that as well. So be aware of this, these ceilings and thresholds, but you have to be as specific as you can.
Indeed, and we will go into more details in the September session where we will be talking about practical aspects, but you will have to talk about the supervisors both in the excellence section where you will describe more the experience, the expertise for these supervisors, actually supervisor and mentoring skills and experience, but you will also use the Part B2, the table, to talk about the supervisor's commitment, meaning the percentage, for instance, of dedication to the projects that have to be also very realistic. That's something I guess the evaluators also look into details in the review. Jesus, I don't know if you wanted to add something.
Yes, we can add so many things. For example, for the planned secondments, also in the doctoral candidate individual project, you have to include the timing, who is the supervisor during the secondment, not only in the supervision section, but also in the individual project. So, but there is you need to be very specific with a lot of details. I think with the success stories we are presenting today, we will see that as much as possible is the best way to have a successful and competitive proposal.
Thank you. So let's move on. So as you can see, Julien, we have very practical questions because I think our audience is very, very experienced in Spain. We know that. Do the reviewers read or assess the list of publications, project, infrastructure for each participant institutions in Part A? It seems to duplicate partially the information in the tables in Part B.
Yes, indeed. So you will see in the guide for applicant, we also specify, because in our case, because we have part B2 where you have to insert the infrastructure, the previous publications and projects, as long as it's in part B2, it's not compulsory to put it in part A. Now in part A, what you have to put are, so there are things you need to put in part A and things you don't need to put. So part A is kind of a corporate thing that applies to all the programs, but because in MSCA DN we have part B2, you don't need to duplicate this information indeed. But there are some things that you still need to put, like the researchers that will be involved, you need to put that there as well.
Okay, then about this
question for you.
Thank you. Yes, about the handbooks, absolutely. We are always updating the handbooks for all the calls. Okay, so it will be updated. I mean, of course, in due time. But yes, you will have all the updated handbooks. So during the evaluator process, in the case of a resubmission proposals, do the external experts have access to the previous evaluations report at any stage, individual evaluation and or consensus meeting?
Yes, so in case of a resubmission and resubmission taken as a self-declaration when you resubmit your proposal, in that case, the experts have access to the previous CSR at the consensus meeting stage. So the idea is that at the individual evaluation, they should not be influenced by anything else than the current proposal. And then at the consensus meeting, they have access to the previous CSR, but they don't have access to the previous proposal, only the previous CSR.
Perfect. Then, is it possible for the coordinator to request part of the management costs of the other partners? And I guess maybe we will let Julien answer, but I'm pretty sure that both Victor and Johan will talk about that later on, maybe. But yes, Julien, go ahead, please.
Well, very quickly, yes, it is possible, and it is what most projects do. You have to formalize that in the consortium agreement most of the time, but it's possible to redistribute the institutional cost between the partners. And usually the coordinator has more management costs. Some other beneficiaries, if they have more training costs, they can also get some of the money, so yes.
Absolutely, and then all these will have to be included in the consortium agreement as such. Then the next question will be regarding associated partners. Will they be able to claim costs for materials, laboratory usage, and secondment development? And should these be stated in the submitted proposal?
Basically, this is as well an internal matter of the consortium that should be formalized in the consortium agreement. It is possible through the redistribution of institutional cost. You don't need to state that in the submitted proposal. This is something that you will negotiate that at a later stage. You don't need to say that.
Yeah, so meaning it's not the European Commission who will actually provide these funds, to these associated partners, but it will be within the framework of consortium agreement or partnership agreement, where the associated partner can ask for the cost of the laboratory, or obviously when a secondment is included in the project, also this can be part of this cost that the associated partners have to incur in. But then again, this is not the EU who will provide the funds, but it's within the consortium of a partnership agreement. Can you repeat? Okay, I think we just said it. Can you repeat how associated partners could get money from training and secondments? It's just in the process of writing the consortium agreement, the partnership agreement, it's actually an agreement within the beneficiaries and the associated partners of the consortium, okay? Meaning, for instance, if a doctoral candidate spends 4 months at a company, that the beneficiary and the company will sign an agreement, a bilateral agreement, and then they can decide if there are any costs, the costs can be transferred to the associated partners. Where can we get the evaluation form?
In the call page of the funding and tender portal. So you have there's one of the document that's the evaluation form, but you can also get it in the work program, the different evaluation criteria.
Perfect, and I think we get into the end of it. Okay, talking about reporting and justification, the training and management costs are in the form of unit cost per month and researcher. How the post-award justification of the training costs work?
Well, the thing is, because we're working on the unit cost, and that's part of the simplified financial mechanism, you don't need to justify the training costs or any costs. What you need to justify, you need to be able to justify that the fellow worked during the time that you claimed the fellow worked. So if the fellow worked 14 months, then you're entitled to receive 14 times the unit. But you don't need to explain the cost of the training or the cost of the consumables or any of those costs.
Perfect. And then do the eligible researchers need to be enrolled in the doctoral program at the time of the application before the recruitment process starts?
Not necessarily, and usually not. Usually you recruit them.
We lost the sound, but I guess Julian was going to say you recruit them to actually pursue a doctorate.
Connection is back again. Yeah, so they can be enrolled after they are recruited. Yes, that's usually how it happens. They are recruited and then they start the process of being enrolled.
Perfect. Perfect. So I think we covered on time all the questions. I'm not sure because I think I saw a couple of them written in the questions part. Let me see if I managed to see them, because as I mentioned, it's not an easy tool, but yes, I don't know if you possibly don't see them, but I'm going to read them out to you, okay, Julien? Is there any benefit to associating a proposal with a network like a cost action? So I'm not quite sure if the question is it good to have an association with the cost action within the doctoral network? Is there a benefit to associating a proposal with the network like a cost action? I guess this is the question, yes.
Yes, so it depends. So there is no benefit for the evaluation of your proposal because this is not an evaluation criterion, so you will not get plus points. But of course, we're always very happy when you can develop synergies with other projects and other programs. So it's probably a very good thing. It's just, this is not an evaluation criterion, so yeah.
Okay. And then the last question, being beneficiary of Research and Innovation Staff Exchange of MSCA is a plus to apply for doctoral network with a similar consortium?
No, I mean the proposals are evaluated as they are, and really based on the evaluation criteria and what you propose. So again, this is not an evaluation criterion, and there is no, being part of the MSCA family because you had a project before does not give you any advantage in the evaluation, which is a good thing too, because we don't want this to be a club. We want this to be a open, fair, transparent evaluation, the same way that you recruit your fellows.
That's true, but I think it's maybe also good to mention that some doctoral, and I think Jesus was going to say something about it, I'm pretty sure. Go ahead, Jesus, because I'm talking a lot, so go ahead.
To remind, many doctoral networks became RISE projects, and many RISE projects became doctoral network. I think it's something important, interesting, as Julian explained. It's no evaluation criteria, but it's something that will help the impact in the doctoral candidate's career, because they will be in an international collaboration environment for the cost action, or collaborating with a RISE project that is sometimes very close to the market, close to the society. So I think it's interesting. To be a coordinator of the RISE and coordinator of the doctoral network depends the availability of the coordinator and all the daily activities he or she is involved. It's up to the researcher or the supervisor or the coordinator to decide if he or he is able to lead with two coordination of two projects at the same time.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's good what Julian also mentioned is the fact that we have these different calls, but they have different objectives. So we can have obviously a research and innovation staff exchange project that was funded, and after being completed and having benefited from a lot of secondments and exchanges of staff, they can see that maybe these can grow into a doctoral network where there's a different aim and objective, and that's very important to take into account, because Julian mentioned that very clearly. Those are different calls and different objectives. I think we're just in time, so and that doesn't really happen very often for us. Oh, the last, okay, let us take this last question. I was surprised we didn't get this one yet, but we normally get in the second session when we explain the salaries and stuff. Is the living allowance shown to be received in full by the doctoral candidate, or can the employer deduct social security or health care costs? So Julian, I don't know if you're there. The sound is gone, I think, because I cannot see his mic there. Back.
I'm sorry, the audio was lost for quite a long time, so I don't know whether you replied or not.
No, we didn't. I mean, we could, but we were waiting for you.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, so it's a question that usually the fellows ask us later on in the project. So this amount is the gross amount, so it's not what they get. So this is the gross amount, including social security, healthcare, pension, the employer's taxes and everything. So they get less than this 3,400 euros per month. So yeah, it's the total cost. Yeah.
And if you allow me, I will translate this gross amount into what we call in Spain coste empresa, because it's a little bit different, the meaning. Okay, you've mentioned very clearly that this living allowance also include the employer's cost, which would be the quota patronal in Spain. Okay, but so that's important. It's not a net salary whatsoever. There are a lot of deductions that need to be taken. Okay, and that even after having taken this deduction, it's a very competitive salary still, at least in our country. So thank you very much, and I think we will finish this first section, if that's okay. Thank you, Julien. Really sorry about the loss of connection. Feel free to, if you have to leave, we will let you free, and we will continue this webinar with both Johan and Victor. I don't know if they're there and if they can put their cameras on for us so that we can see them. Good. I can see Johan there, so maybe we can start with your presentation if you wish. I don't remember now what was the let me see, what was the order. Actually, we had Victor first. I think it doesn't really make a difference. But
Victor is there as well. He's connected.
Okay, good. Because now I cannot see you. I can only see me. So I will share my screen. So who would like to start first? I will follow the order if that's okay with you. I will follow the order of the agenda. Here. And I've sent you Victor. I've sent you Victor.
Can you see my screen or
not yet?
now? So apparently it's in green. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, not me. I don't know if my colleagues.
No, not yet.
Says it's showing it, but now can you see the PowerPoint?
No. Os iba a decir, bueno, esta segunda sesión la podemos hacer como queráis, en inglés o en español, porque en principio Julien se iba a desconectar. Si quieres, Víctor, si tienes problemas, me lo puedes enviar a mí para que yo lo comparta. Si te da problemas, me lo envíes por email y de mientras lo que podemos... Ah, no,
Vale.
mira, ahí lo tenemos.
Acaba de aparecer.
Aparece, nos faltaría la pantalla completa.
¿Ahora?
No, en pantalla completa no aparece, pero bueno, de todas maneras yo creo que se ve bien, ¿verdad? No sé el resto, como veo que asentís con la cabeza.
Sí.
Yo diría, si queréis, que se ve bastante claro y de todas maneras luego subiremos las presentaciones en cuanto las tenga todas. Así que si quieres, Víctor, muchísimas gracias por tu disponibilidad. Como os decía al principio, que sé que son fechas muy complicadas, ya la gente está casi de vacaciones o en congresos. Así que agradecerte este ratito que nos dedicas. Adelante y por favor, puedes empezar.
Bueno, pues gracias por la invitación. Os quería dar mostraros mi experiencia con las Doctoral Networks. Bueno, cuando empezaron las ITNs, las Innovative Training Networks. Tengo experiencia con 3 y os explicaré un poco ellas. Me centraré más en la que soy coordinador, que es este proyecto SMILE, pero también os hablaré de las otras para que veáis otras experiencias, otras situaciones. ¿Veis el cambio de diapositiva?
No, seguimos viendo.
Ahora.
Ah,
Parece que va con un poquito de retraso, pero sí.
Y pantalla completa estaba viendo, o sea, por lo menos a mí sí me ha visto un segundo.
Vale.
Vemos
la pantalla completa, pero ¿qué se necesita para montar una propuesta Marie Curie?
Está en negro, se ve lo que es la pregunta y nada más en principio, ¿no?
Vale. Bueno, pues, ¿qué es lo que se necesita, no? Yo lo resumiría en tiempo. consumen bastante tiempo en escribir una buena propuesta, son 35 páginas, hay que cubrir todos los puntos. Y lo otro que se necesita es un consorcio que sea competitivo y también se necesitan empresas. Que esto normalmente es la parte más complicada, porque normalmente tenemos colaboradores científicos, pero la parte empresarial no siempre la tenemos y esto a veces cuesta un poco más de encontrar. Bueno, un poco por encima de qué va el proyecto SMILE, es Multidisciplinary and Multi-Scale Approach for Coupled Processes Induced by Geoenergies. Entonces, en este proyecto estoy de coordinador, es en el panel de Environment and Geoscience, y lo que tratamos es cómo responde el subsuelo cuando utilizamos geoenergías de bajas emisiones de CO2 o incluso para tener emisiones negativas, que sería el caso de, por ejemplo, combinar la geotermia con el almacenamiento geológico de CO2, que sería esto de aquí. La idea es que de la industria podemos capturar emisiones de CO2, como en la industria del cemento, el acero o las químicas, que aunque se alimenten de energía renovable, por los procesos químicos que tienen lugar durante la fabricación se emiten grandes cantidades de CO2. Esto a escala global representa unas 8 gigatoneladas de CO2 al año, que es aproximadamente un 20% del total. Es decir, que aunque toda la energía fuera de renovables, si seguimos consumiendo cemento, acero, que las previsiones son de que lo vamos a seguir consumiendo, pues seguiríamos emitiendo 8 gigatoneladas, ¿no? Entonces, la única manera de inyectar parte de este CO2 que se inyecta bajo tierra, y si aprovechamos podemos aprovechar energía geotérmica, que sería, ya está establecido. Bueno, lo que comentaba, que podemos aprovechar utilizar energía geotérmica. En este sentido estaríamos almacenando más CO2 de la energía que producimos, por lo tanto podemos tener incluso sacar CO2 de la atmósfera. Y seguramente la parte más innovadora es que combinábamos lo que es la parte de subsuelo con medidas de satélite, ¿no? Entonces, juntábamos estas dos disciplinas que normalmente no interactúan entre ellas, y era una parte multidisciplinar del proyecto. Entonces, el consorcio, ¿cómo se formó? Inicialmente fue a partir de investigadores que habíamos coincidido en Berkeley, en el Laboratorio Nacional de Berkeley, como postdocs o como investigadores, y eran gente que que habíamos vuelto a Europa, en el ETH, en Minsk Paris Tech y en el BGR, y yo estaba en el CSIC. Entonces luego contactamos con gente que trabaja con satélites, que son G-Red en Italia, que esto es una spin-off de Politécnico de Milano, y el CTTC, que está de la UPC en el campus de Castelldefels. Y luego contactos que tenía de mi etapa del doctorado con un profesor de la Universidad de Edimburgo y con un profesor que es del NTNU en Trondheim, pero que también trabaja en la empresa Equinor. La idea inicial de contactarlo era por su trabajo en Equinor también, para tener empresas, pero aparte de que nos suministren datos, no ha sido posible que se involucren más en el proyecto. Entonces, para las empresas, inicialmente contactamos con Barcelona Science, que era una empresa muy pequeñita de 2 investigadores que hacían servicios de informática, y ellos desarrollan programas para empresas según lo que les soliciten. Luego DARES, que es una empresa que también se dedica a medir la deformación del terreno. Quintesa, que era un contacto de la Universidad de Edimburgo, que también es una consultoría, trabajan sobre todo en almacenamiento de residuos nucleares. Y Tasca, que es una empresa que desarrolla software. Esto fue el primer año que contactamos y bueno, cada año han ido evolucionando un poquito el consorcio y esto es como fue el último año en el que fuimos, nos dieron el proyecto. El consorcio era prácticamente igual, pero también teníamos una empresa más como beneficiaria que era Seismic, que están en Praga y hacen passive monitoring de sísmica pasiva. Las empresas también habían cambiado un poquito, la única que se mantenía desde el principio era Quintesa, que sí que había ido renovando el interés, pero el resto en algún momento nos dijeron que no continuaban. Y entonces luego conseguimos Gamma, que también es otra empresa que mide deformaciones del terreno, y Creative, que es una startup que están en Holanda, que hacen visualización 3D. Entonces, bueno, tenéis que estar preparados para que haya cambios, incluso después de conseguir el proyecto. En nuestro caso, VGR dijo que no firmaba el Grant Agreement y que se desentendía el proyecto, que no seguía para adelante. La buena noticia es que la Unión Europea ha sido muy flexible, siempre ha dado facilidades para encontrar soluciones y al final lo que hicimos fue estos dos proyectos que tenía VGR, los ha tomado otras universidades y hemos podido más o menos pues mantener bastante la propuesta inicial sin hacer cambios grandes, pero manteniendo todos los doctorandos. Entonces, bueno, el mensaje es que esto es una carrera a largo plazo. Aparte os decía que hace falta tiempo, también tenéis que tener muchas energías y ser conscientes de que esto puede ir para largo, pero mi consejo es no desistáis. Cada año podéis ir mejorando la propuesta y bueno, en este caso nosotros al cuarto año fue cuando la conseguimos, cuando hubo el cambio de H2020 a Horizon Europe. Como veis en las puntuaciones, bueno, cada año recibíamos los comentarios de los revisores e intentamos mejorar. El primer año no hicimos realmente mucho mejora, incluso nos evaluaron algo peor, pero ya luego el tercer año sí que conseguimos una propuesta ya potente y el último año, pues bueno, un 97% que está muy bien. Pero lo que lleva más tiempo es la primera vez que se escribe la propuesta, porque tienes que juntar toda la información. Luego es mejorarla, adaptar cosas y detalles que identifican los revisores en los que no habías pensado que te permiten ir mejorando. Aquí os pongo algunos comentarios de revisores para que tengáis una idea. Esta es de la primera evaluación que nos hicieron en 2018. Entonces, en la parte de excelencia, bueno, en todas estamos ahí sobre el 3,6, 3,8, no está, pasábamos el corte, pero nos evaluaban bastante bajo. Entonces, cosas que nos comentaban era que las innovations and technological objectives are very generic and not focused, focused. Entonces, bueno, esto lo vas trabajando para expresarlo mejor, ¿no? The PhD supervision experience of the supervisors has not been sufficiently substantiated. Creo que esto era una de las preguntas que se han hecho. Hay que mostrar que los supervisors tienen experiencia. En nuestro caso no todo el mundo tenía mucha experiencia, pero como es un consorcio al final siempre lo puedes explicar de una manera que se muestre que en el global sí que hay experiencia de supervisar estudiantes. Luego, the interaction between supervisors and early stage researchers have not been adequately elaborated. Luego, en la parte de impact, the training program is unbalanced and mainly focused on scientific courses. Entonces, lo que hicimos fue hacer más hincapié en la parte técnica o en los transferable skills, hacer diferentes tipos de trainings, ¿no? Que sean, y que esto, lo que buscan es que sean más o menos equilibrados, que si tienes 10 trainings, pues que tengas 3 o 4 científicos, 3 o 4 más técnicos y luego otros más de habilidades para los estudiantes. The dissemination plan does not indicate any proper channel to reach the industrial sector. Bueno, esto es lo que os comentaba, ¿no? Que a veces la parte que que a veces tenemos pocos contactos con la industria y es quizá la parte que nos cuesta un poco más, pero bueno, a base de moverse y de ir encontrando contactos por toda la red, pues se acaba consiguiendo. The plan for the exploitation of results lacks significant details, being primarily limited to intellectual property issues. Claro, esto es también una parte, a no ser que habéis trabajado con transferencia de conocimiento, es una parte que tampoco tenemos mucha experiencia. En el CSIC hay un departamento que se encarga de esto y por ejemplo, puedes pedir asesoramiento. No, la parte de implementation. The list of major milestones does not clearly include any scientific milestone. Entonces, bueno, teníamos sobre todo cosas técnicas, ¿no? De cuándo van a estar seleccionados los estudiantes, pero la parte científica, pues bueno, la olvidamos un poco del primer año. Pues el siguiente es interesante porque previous co-working experiences and synergies of the participating organizations have not been sufficiently elaborated. Como se explicaba, este consorcio salió de una experiencia previa que habíamos trabajado un grupo significante del consorcio en Berkeley, pero no fuimos capaces de explicar que ya nos conocíamos, que teníamos ya unas colaboraciones existentes y esto, bueno, lo trabajamos más en la siguiente. Y luego a veces van a cosas muy al detalle, como one student does not have a named supervisor. No llegué a encontrar dónde estaba, pero cambiamos un poco la manera que lo presentamos esta información y no se volvieron a quejar. Y luego, bueno, lo que os decía, ¿no? Cada año puedes ir mejorando y en la último, en el que nos lo concedieron, pues en la parte de excellence, esto es lo que tenéis que intentar, ¿no? Es el objetivo a conseguir la máxima puntuación que te digan no major weaknesses are identified. Luego en impact, pero siempre te quedan cosas, ¿no? Y luego cuando cambian los evaluadores, pues cada uno ve cosas diferentes. Puedes mejorar cosas que te indicaban unos en los años anteriores, pero los nuevos evaluadores van a encontrar otros. Y aquí, pues bueno, algunos ejemplos. A clear indication of the structures of the doctoral program which are going to be sustained beyond the proposed project is not fully elaborated. Pues aquí, bueno, pedían a ver qué pasará luego, ¿no? Esto no lo habíamos realmente pensado. Luego, relevant stakeholders and key results for exploitation are not well specified to fully justify the effectiveness of proposed interactions. Y en la parte de implementation, interrelation details between scientific work packages which run in parallel and insufficiently provide. Como os comentaba, siempre hay detalles que encuentran, pero bueno, lo importante es que cuantas menos cosas os puedan criticar, pues mejor, ¿no? Más puntuación tendréis. Todo este proyecto empezó el 1 de enero, todavía no han empezado los estudiantes, pero bueno, algunos consejos así sobre la implementación del proyecto, ¿no? La primera sería encontrar un project manager lo antes posible, idealmente desde el inicio del proyecto. Esto a veces es muy complicado. En nuestro caso, el project manager lo decidimos prácticamente al inicio del proyecto, pero la contratación se alargó 2 o 3 meses y hasta abril no pudo empezar. Entonces, toda la parte del recruitment no estaba el project manager y fue trabajo que tuvimos que hacer nosotros exclusivamente. Hay que empezar el recruitment lo antes posible porque siempre hay imprevistos. En nuestro caso teníamos 11 estudiantes porque Suiza recibía financiación del gobierno suizo, entonces podíamos pedir 10 proyectos a la Unión Europea más el suizo. Pues de estos 11, una vez los habíamos seleccionado, 3 de las personas a que les dijimos el proyecto es tuyo renunciaron, ¿no? En uno fue relativamente sencillo, pudimos coger otros candidatos buenos que habían aplicado y conseguimos. Pero los otros 2 casos tardaron 1 mes o 2 en darnos la noticia de que lo dejaban y ya de los estudiantes que teníamos como posibles reservas ya habían encontrado otras cosas y hemos tenido que reabrir el proceso de buscar candidatos. Entonces, nosotros el call for applicants, o sea, la convocatoria la lanzamos en noviembre, 2 meses antes de iniciar el proyecto. En otro proyecto en el que estoy se inició mucho más tarde y yo ya le he dicho al coordinador varias veces que temo que no lo podremos contratar a la persona dentro de los 12 primeros meses. O sea, cuanto antes empecéis, mejor, más tranquilidad y os aseguráis que todo el mundo pueda empezar dentro de los plazos permitidos. Y luego mantener una buena comunicación con el Project Officer. Están para ayudar, en nuestro caso ha sido muy servicial en todo momento y lo que buscan es que el proyecto sea un éxito. Entonces, cualquier duda, cualquier cuestión que tengáis, hablar con el Project Officer, que son de gran ayuda. Y luego, muy brevemente, os explicaré mi experiencia con otros 2 proyectos. Este era sobre geotermia de muy alta entalpía en zonas volcánicas. Es un tema muy nuevo y el primer año pues conseguimos una gran puntuación. Nos quedamos cerca de tener el proyecto, pero no llegamos a la financiación. Claro, el hecho de que tuviéramos aquí una puntuación muy alta también es, como yo ya tenía experiencia de qué es lo que nos habían criticado, pues ya sabes cómo orientar mejor la propuesta a la hora de redactarla. Pero bueno, siempre hay factores que no podemos controlar. Al año siguiente, a pesar de que habíamos mejorado la propuesta, los comentarios que hemos recibido, pues hubo un revisor que no le gustó nada y nos la tumbaron, o sea, un 52. Y luego ya no hemos vuelto a enviarla porque la persona hacía de coordinador, cambió de institución y no podía seguir haciendo ese papel. Y dentro del consorcio pues tampoco encontramos a ningún otro que se ofrecía voluntario y bueno, ahí quedó la propuesta. Y otra propuesta en la que sí que he sido beneficiario, que también he empezado este año, que va sobre almacenamiento subterráneo de hidrógeno. En este caso soy beneficiario, el coordinador es la Universidad de Nápoles y en este caso el consorcio es más sencillo. En el que soy coordinador somos 8 beneficiarios y hay muchas interacciones, pero en este caso éramos 5 beneficiarios, 2 proyectos cada uno y luego cada beneficiario aportaba 1 o 2 industrial partners, que básicamente es donde hacen las estancias los estudiantes. Y en esta, pues bueno, lo conseguimos a la primera. Creo que es raro, pero bueno, a veces pasa. Creo que el mensaje es que merece la pena hacer un esfuerzo la primera vez que se escribe la propuesta para que quede lo mejor posible, porque sí que es verdad que normalmente a la primera no se consigue, pero si ya... O sea, no lo hagáis pensando en, bueno, lo enviamos a ver qué nos dicen los revisores, intentar cubrir todos los aspectos del template lo mejor posible, porque en algunos casos pues se puede conseguir a la primera. Entonces, mis 2 consejos serían que abordéis convincentemente todos los puntos de la plantilla, que ya lo ha comentado antes Julián. Es muy importante, si tenéis la parte de excellence perfecta y tenéis un 5, pero luego no elaboráis bien la implementación o el impacto, puede ser que ni paséis el corte o que seguro no conseguiréis el proyecto, porque ya habéis visto que para ser exitoso el proyecto necesitáis más de un 93, 94, tenéis que ir al 95% o más. Es decir, todos los aspectos de la plantilla tienen que estar muy bien explicados y detallados. Y luego también había una pregunta en este sentido. Es fundamental que incluyáis un project manager. Son proyectos complicados, complejos, con muchas interacciones, hay mucho training, entonces necesitáis un project manager. Y esto normalmente lo contrata el coordinador, pero se reparten los costes. Es decir, los otros beneficiarios aportan parte del management cost para contratar a este project manager. Y bueno, pues mucha suerte y ánimo que merecen la pena.
Muchas gracias, Víctor. Además, en este caso, con varios proyectos, que creo que también es interesante, ¿no? Un poquito ver la dinámica o las diferentes dinámicas y también tener en cuenta que además ha ido tocando algunas de las preguntas que iban saliendo, ¿no? La relacionada con la información sobre los supervisores, colaboraciones previas y demás. Y también luego a nivel de práctica lo que ocurre, ¿no? La realidad, pues que a veces hay candidatos que se caen a los 2 meses o se van a 2 o 3 meses, cómo se gestiona todo eso y la figura de gestión, ¿no? De proyectos que es relevante. Bueno, si os parece, antes de tomar las preguntas que están entrando, pasamos a la presentación de Johan y luego ya sí que entramos, si os parece, a debatir. Vale, Johan, te cedo el mando. Yo creo que ya estamos ya viendo su pantalla.
Muy bien, pues muchas gracias, Cristina.
Perfecto, fenomenal, todo tuyo.
Bien. Good morning, everybody. I will speak in English. I'm Johan Knapen. I'm at the IAC in Tenerife, and I'm going to speak about this project called Educado, exploring the deep universe by computational analysis of data from observations, which was just funded recently. So this is a Horizon Europe DN project funded under last year's call. It's a collaboration between astronomy and computer science and coordinated by us at the IAC in Tenerife. We'll have 10 DCs, which was the maximum, 10 doctoral candidates. I say maybe 11, I'll come to this because we have a UK partner as well, as was explained before. 2 of these doctoral candidates will be at the IAC with us in Tenerife, and 1 will be in Barcelona, the others elsewhere in Europe. The network as beneficiaries, we have...
One second, I have to interrupt you, Johan, because I don't know the rest, but I can see the screen in white, absolutely. I cannot see anything in the screen. I don't know if it's only me.
No, it's white. Time.
Está en blanco totalmente. Yes, we cannot see anything.
That is strange. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the screen.
Okay.
And
yo creo que GoToWebinar nos está diciendo definitivamente que tras este webinario nos tenemos que ir todos de vacaciones, pero ya porque yo creo que nunca habíamos tenido tanta incidencia en un webinario, así que nos lo tomaremos de esa manera, ¿eh? Ahora sí.
No se pueden hacer infodays en julio, y ya lo hemos visto.
Perfect.
Ahora sí, ¿verdad?
Yeah, ahora sí, adelante, perdona.
Okay, so this I had said. This was the network. I was here. So we have beneficiaries in astronomy, us, University of Barcelona, INAF, which is the National Institute for Astronomy in Italy, the Padua node, University of Groningen in the Netherlands, and University of Ghent in Belgium. We have data science, astroinformatics nodes, beneficiaries. These are really living between astronomy and computer science. So this is the same university as Victor mentioned, Napoli, and the Heidelberg for Theoretical Studies in Germany. And then we have 2 computer science nodes, or well, one or 2 or 3, depending on how you count them. Paris University, the same University of Groningen in the Netherlands, which also has a computer science department. And there's Birmingham in the UK, which is now between brackets, and I'll come to that later on. So as associated partners, we have various. This is what people often refer to as the companies, but they're not all companies. Christina, you can see the associated partners now, right, on my screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Right, so we have several kinds. We have 2 partners that we needed to include because the IAC and INAF in Padova do not award PhDs. So we have our universities listed as APs linked to beneficiary. So this is University of La Laguna in Tenerife and University of Padova. Then we have academic companies between quotes, University of Birmingham, which was beneficiary, is now associated partner. The Dirac Institute in the USA, Italian Aerospace Research Center, and the Courant Institute at New York University. And then we have purely commercial companies, ATSIS in France, which does image processing, AVS in Spain, a Dutch company, 2 Dutch companies actually work on artificial intelligence. Vicomtech is in the Basque Country in Spain, and Pervasive is an AI company in Barcelona in Spain. And one of the features in our network, and I think in all funded networks now, is that the DCs will spend mandatory time as secondments and other beneficiaries, and also in internships at one of our associated partners. And we really wrote that into the proposal from beginning to end. What we plan to do is we look at dwarf galaxies, so we explore the properties of dwarf galaxies and then use them to resolve problems and inconsistencies in modern cosmological models. For that, we will use the deepest possible imaging of galaxies, and you can see some of that below in the picture. These are some of our dwarf galaxies. And we combine that imaging with detailed spectroscopic studies of our Milky Way and the local groups, so very nearby galaxies. And we do all this by developing cutting-edge computer science and data science techniques, which include mathematical morphology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, probabilistic modeling. So this is an interdisciplinary proposal, which if you read the documentation in the EU, they want. But our experience is that when this is evaluated, it makes the evaluation more complicated because we've seen that the evaluators look at this as an astronomy proposal and then wonder what the computer science does, or the other way around. So our experience is that it's really hard to write an interdisciplinary proposal and get it evaluated well. But the documentation says that things should be interdisciplinary. That was as an aside. This is some of the data and telescopes that we will use. At the top left, you see Euclid, and if you've watched the news, you've seen that this was launched successfully about 10 days ago. So here's the satellite drifting away into space on the 1st of July. This is Gaia. At the top right, we have the LSST telescope, which is being constructed in Chile. Lower right, we have our own 10-meter GTC telescope in La Palma in the Canary Islands. And the lower left, we have WEAVE, which is a brand new, I think, 30 million euro instrument that we put on the 4-meter telescope on La Palma. So this is the tools that we use on the astronomy side. The timeline of our proposal, the deadline that we worked with was November 2022. We heard the evaluation results early March, and the grant agreement, actually an hour ago, I got the email that it's ready and we should sign it. So this is July 23. The formal start date of our network is 1 January 2024, and it will then last for 4 years. We will start the recruitment of the doctoral candidates and the project manager in September. And the aim is that the PhD students will start their contracts in September 24, and they will have 3-year contracts, which is the maximum. The UK status, I just comment on this from my experience. So this is not official. This is our experience with this proposal. We had a very valued beneficiary, to the University of Birmingham Computer Science. They were part of the proposal, completely written into it as beneficiary. Brussels then notified us in April that they would not be allowed to sign the grant agreement. And we moved then UOB to become an associated partner. Luckily, as was mentioned before, the REA is very flexible, and they allowed us to reallocate the funds, and that we placed that at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, who will now have a second doctoral candidate funded. On the other hand, again, as was mentioned before, the UOB Birmingham will and can apply for UK government backup funding, which we've heard in other cases is actually successful, and that would lead to an 11th doctoral candidate. So this might actually work to our benefit, which is probably the only advantage ever of Brexit. So it's a very strange situation. My personal advice would be, and again, this is not official, is do not exclude any UK partners. Put them in, because they can be very good. So put them in, but build in the contingency in your proposal, which means identify this as a risk, that they may not be able to sign the grant agreement. And then, of course, you have to define somewhere in the proposal the work performed outside the EU. You need to discuss the ethics outside the EU. So do all those things, but do not exclude UK partners at this stage. They can be very valuable, and they, at the moment, as it stands, as I understand, they are allowed to be named as beneficiaries in a proposal. So the history of our proposal, it's interesting that Victor showed something similar. The history here is very long. We had an existing science collaboration which led to an FP7 ITN Dagal, which was coordinated by myself at the IAC. So this ran from 2011 to 2015. We had 8 ESRs, as they were called then, and 2 postdocs. This was followed up by an ITN called Sundial, which was between computer science and astronomy. The first one, Dagal, was purely astronomy. So this one ran from 2016 to 21, where we had 14 ESRs, and this was coordinated by Groningen. We maintained 3 of the 6 beneficiaries of the previous network, and we added 6 new ones, which included some computer science ones. So the network does change over time. And this then was followed up by this new one, Educado, which now runs from 2024 to 28. 10 DCs, the maximum allowed, and we're coordinating. It's our turn from the IAC in Spain. So we maintained 6 of the 9 beneficiaries from Sundial, and we added 3 new ones. Now, the GAL was submitted twice. I couldn't find the first percentage, but the one was successful, was at 94.6%. Sundial was, as Victor said in his case, this was a lucky shot, and the first one we got in, 94.6. And Educado was 3 times tried, the first one 82.4%, and the main criticism there was, you've just had money to do Sundial, why do you need more funding to do more of the same? So that was an 82.4, we then went up to 88.4, and then just scraped into the funding with our 93.8 in the current one. So how to write and revise a proposal, you've heard this before, but this will also be my advice. In our case, a first draft, which really is 90% ready or more. This was ready 3 months before the deadline. A deadline for submission is a completely artificial date. So I just set my own date 3 months earlier and made sure it was ready then. And then we went into a seemingly endless cycle of revision. So it was revised by myself, by the co-Is on the proposal, by various colleagues at my own institute, by the ISC's grants office, who have a lot of experience in this, by grants offices and EU funding experts at other nodes and other beneficiaries. The NCP team in Madrid helped us, so Jesus, thank you very much. And we hired an external consultant through a commercial service. So all this results in seemingly endless revision and editing. And of course, if you go through all this, then you even end up changing things that later have to be changed the other way around. So this took 3 months, and we actually ran out of time in the end, even with this planning. The evaluation results, as I said, we scored 93.8%. And with that, we gather that we just funded in the PHI panel, the physics panel. I think we were the last one to be funded. And these are the scores that we got: criterion 1, 4.7, then a 4.6 and a 4.8. The evaluation report that we got is very detailed and is obviously dominated by strength. And it's clear that evaluators are being asked to comment on all the subsections that you see in the templates. So really make sure that you discuss all of them, even if you think they're not too relevant to your proposals. And I quote this from the evaluation report. For instance, the open science and data management practices are well detailed. They are relevant and appropriate for the proposed action. They follow FAIR principles and are very well explained. So this is something that you may think, well, you know, we do obvious things. We thought this, we don't do anything special in our field, but we did write it down, and this was seen as a strength. Another one to highlight is artificial intelligence. Don't just say that you're going to use it, because that's like saying we use math in our field, or we use physical formula. Explain what you're going to do and why. And then we got this strength back, exploited in the proposal for extracting information from complex data sets, and the robustness is well demonstrated. The words I put in red are the words that come in the commission documents. So the evaluators obviously tick them off and then put them either in the strength or in the weaknesses. The science obviously is important, and we were criticized on that in earlier submissions. My view is that if you get the science right at the beginning of the proposal, then evaluators will tend to be more positive towards the rest. If you start off on the wrong foot with an evaluator, then there's no way that the rest of the proposal can save the proposal. So this is the kind of remarks that we got back. Again, in red, the keywords that you're supposed to address, and this is all very positive, and there's no need to go through it in great detail. But it does show that you have to address all these different points that are put in the call and into the template documents, and that are then coming back into the evaluator evaluators' documents that they tick off. So the shortcomings that we got back in the ESR really are very minor. In criterion 1, we heard the specific expected results that will emerge from meeting the objectives are not sufficiently explained. And this to me is just one big question mark. I think you can say this to any proposal. You can always request something to be more specific. And I find the comment itself not very specific, but this is the main comment we got back, which got us down from a 5.0 to I think a 4.7. And the second point there is it is not sufficiently clear how the different observational biases in the data sets to be used will be handled. This is a minor shortcoming. Fair enough. Then in C2, criterion 2, there's only shortcoming, the only weakness we got is one minor shortcoming. Not entirely clear whether the courses developed for this proposal will still be available after the duration of the proposal, which was obviously the case. We were going to the plan was to put everything online, on YouTube, etc. So obviously this will be, but we just didn't say it explicitly. If we would have added 3 words, there would not have been the shortcoming. The third one is on criterion 3, another minor shortcoming, that the late timing for reaching milestone M2 on finishing recruitment is not compelling, nor is it fully consistent with the planned much earlier start date for all these projects. Again, this is something Victor just explained very nicely why we put this deadline, this milestone quite late, and it's in case a recruitment fails and we need to re-advertise. But we didn't add that clearly enough, or the evaluators didn't see that that could actually be an issue. So you get back these very minor shortcomings. What this shows you is that this is all they could find in a proposal. And I think we're at that level now. These proposals are so competitive and so good that evaluators really have to dig hard for anything that can be listed as a weakness, and they do. And that also means that everything else, you must not give the evaluators any excuse to put it down as a weakness. So the proposal really has to be near perfect. So here's my final slide, the overall experience. The first point is that doctoral networks are fantastic. This is why we keep applying and why we keep insisting, even though we get this sometimes not very nice feedback and do not get funded. They're collaborative between many colleagues. They're emphasizing the mentoring and training of young people, and they're decently funded. So they really are very nice programs. The problem is that the competition is extremely fierce, and it's not just a success rate of below 10%. It's just a level of perfection of all the competing proposals. I told you this when I talked about the weaknesses. The proposals that get funded, but also those that do not get funded, they are really very, very good. So to get into the funding, you must be lucky, but also write a very good proposal. So some recommendations here: take loads of time to prepare a proposal, certainly not less than 3 months, something like 6 months is better. Form and then curate a world-leading team, but the team also has to be supportive. It's no good to have Nobel Prize winners who don't respond to their emails. These people must be supportive and collaborative. Follow proposal instructions and take every single aspect seriously. If there's even one of these that you forget to put in your proposal, it will come back as a weakness and it will probably throw you out. Request and then incorporate comments from many different sources, not just people who know exactly what you're talking about, also people who work in slightly different fields. Consider using a commercial support service. Of course, this costs money. Your institution will have to agree to this, but our experience was very good with this. And then build and extend your collaborations, even if you do not get funded. I think this is an important point. See this as a tool to get your collaboration a stage further. Don't assume that you will get the money, but I'd almost say assume that you will not get the money, and then use this as a first stage to really get a program going, so that even if you do not get funded, you can still collaborate with your colleagues. So good luck, and this was the end of what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Johan. Muchísimas gracias. Yo creo que ha sido súper interesante también. Y también de la misma manera que mientras hablaba Víctor iba apuntando cositas, ¿no? Me ha hecho mucha gracia ese deadline for submission is a fake one. Y tú creaste uno, ¿no? 3 meses antes, que la verdad es que creo que es muy inteligente, porque además siempre decimos lo mismo, es que en 1 mes, en 2 o en 3 no se puede hacer este tipo de redes, ¿no? Y la necesidad también que apuntabas, bueno, entre otras muchas cosas, yo me he quedado con estas, pero había muchas, esa necesidad de empezar con el buen pie, ¿no? Es decir, la parte científica obviamente tiene un componente altísimo y yo creo que es verdad que a la hora de evaluar, pues luego la gente no entra igual, ¿no? Si esas una o dos primeras páginas ya dicen algo muy consistente, así no lo dicen. Entonces, vamos a ver, tenemos unas cuantas preguntas, las tenemos tanto en el chat como en el Mentimeter, así que lo que voy a hacer es, a ver, yo misma voy a poner primero en pantalla el Menti, que no sé si lo veis o veis mi escritorio, ahí. Ahora sí, ¿verdad? Vale, bueno, yo creo que la primera pregunta estaba más asociada quizás a la presentación que nos hizo Víctor, asociado a los socios industriales. Nos preguntaban si eran beneficiarios o no y cómo se abordó esa, bueno, yo creo que lo podéis comentar los dos de todas maneras en función, ¿no?, de las características de los dos consorcios, pero en el caso de socios industriales beneficiarios, ¿cómo se abordó esa gestión en la parte del B1, en la parte técnica, o cómo se explica claramente esa involucración?
Sí, en nuestro caso teníamos, bueno, la que conseguimos la financiación, había dos empresas como beneficiarios. Cada uno tenía un doctorando. A veces es complicado encontrar una empresa que tenga la capacidad de tener un supervisor y esto porque requiere que sea doctor, ¿no? En este caso las dos empresas venían de gente, una era un spin-off de Politécnico, entonces es gente que sale de la universidad, y el otro también era un científico, un investigador que a cierto punto se creó una empresa y entonces tenían la capacidad de dirigir a doctorandos. Lo hicimos así para intentar dar más o ser más convincentes de cara a que realmente hay interacción con empresas y que tenemos más input, ¿no? Pero no es algo imprescindible. En el otro caso de éxito que mostraba, el SHAN de almacenamiento de hidrógeno, ahí ningún beneficiario es una empresa y también ha funcionado bien.
Johan, no sé si quieres también comentar esta cosa.
Sí, en nuestro caso no son beneficiarios nunca, son associated partners y ayudan con el training, ayudan con la gerencia, forman parte del board, del network. Y lo más importante, que se comprometen a recibir nuestros estudiantes de tesis durante 1 o 2 meses en sus empresas. Eso es lo que hay.
Vale. Bueno, tenemos algunas preguntas más en la parte de preguntas no del Mentimeter, sino de la aplicación. Ahora vamos a verlas y yo creo que nos quedaba solo una por aquí. A ver, perdón, creo que eran 2, ¿vale? O hay una que se ha quitado. Vale. What is the difference between a secondment and an internship? Bueno, es que yo creo que aquí siempre hablamos de secondments como tal, ¿no? Entiendo que no hablamos de internship.
Yo sí hablo de internships en nuestro caso, pero no me acuerdo si es lo que manda la comisión. Secondment lo definimos como un tiempo que pasan en otro beneficiario. Y en nuestro caso son todos los estudiantes de tesis de astronomía van a sitios de informática y al revés. Estos son los secondments. Y los internships lo hemos definido como las estancias en associated partners, son la industria, digamos.
Vale, pero habéis establecido vosotros ese tipo de nomenclatura que en principio no aplica, ¿no? De manera general no se suele establecer así. Vale. Vale, bueno, yo creo que había una pregunta que ahora no la encuentro relacionada con las revisiones de este año de los Doctoral Networks. No las vamos a hacer. Adelanto ya y aprovecho para decirlo. Lamentablemente, ya sabéis que nosotros revisamos siempre propuestas, pero este año es un poquito diferente. Y no vamos a poder. Vamos a organizar una conferencia de Marie Curie en Toledo los días 14 y 15 de noviembre y es que es muy justito la parte, normalmente nosotros acabamos de revisar a finales de octubre y sabemos que no va a ser posible hacerlo. Así que 2023 se va a quedar en cuanto a revisiones de doctoral pues en blanco. Volveremos a retomarlo, por supuesto, el año que viene. Lo que haremos será hacer más apoyo, más actividades de apoyo. Haremos unas sesiones de café con tu NCP para el personal de supervisión y de gestión de las oficinas, ¿vale? Para que ellos puedan ayudar a los coordinadores a preparar mejor esas propuestas. Haremos un poquito más de énfasis aquí, pero lamentablemente somos los que somos muy poquitos y las ojeras ya en el mes de julio están como están, así que no nos dan las horas del día. Lo lamentamos, pero este año es imposible. Retomaremos con más fuerza el año que viene. Vale, queda aquí alguna pregunta más que os las voy a leer, ¿de acuerdo? Porque están en la sección de preguntas del GoToWebinar. Entonces, a ver, un par de ellas. Vale, sobre la composición del consorcio por no cambiar de temática, ¿vale? ¿Es un problema que sean todos los grupos de investigación de ingeniería civil o sería mejor dentro de las instituciones beneficiarias buscar también departamentos más interdisciplinares? ¿La interdisciplinaridad puede también garantizarse mediante los Associated Partners? Yo creo que es un poco genérico, ¿no? El concepto como tal.
Bueno, por dar mi experiencia, creo que no hay una fórmula mágica que diga si todos son de ingeniería civil nos lo van a dar o... Lo que sí que os van a pedir es que haya interacción con industria o empresas. Entonces, si todos los beneficiarios son escuelas de ingeniería civil, no veo que sea problema, pero sí que luego tendrá que haber esa parte más de empresa donde los estudiantes conozcan no solo el mundo académico, sino también el mundo empresarial. No todas las propuestas tienen que ser interdisciplinares, es decir, incluso diría que yo soy ingeniero civil, dentro de ingeniería civil trabajamos en muchas disciplinas, o sea, en las escuelas de caminos vas a encontrar departamentos de todo tipo, o sea, puedes encontrar esta multidisciplinaridad o interdisciplinaridad incluso dentro de estas escuelas. Temas que lo sepáis explicar bien.
Sí, de acuerdo. Y además, sí, manda la propuesta, manda la idea, la que quieres hacer en el proyecto. Y si esta idea necesita otras disciplinas, las incorporas. Si no, no lo hagas porque alguien va a comentar que no puede volver como un weakness a la evaluación. Entonces, si necesitas otras disciplinas, las pones, como en nuestro caso. Obviamente queríamos hacer algo entre dos campos, pero si la propuesta es de ingeniería de algún tipo, pues adelante. Y efectivamente, las empresas sí mandan que hayan empresas. Sí.
Yo diría, bueno, no sé si alguno de mis compañeros tiene algo más que añadir, ¿no? Yo creo que además aquí depende mucho en función del ámbito temático del que estemos hablando, pues esa intersectorialidad va a afectar a diferentes tipologías de entidades. Aquí estamos más centrados quizás en el mundo industrial, empresarial, pero igual en un proyecto más asociado a humanidades, o a ciencias sociales, pues podemos encontrar otro tipo de agentes, ¿no? Socioeconómicos que no son empresas, pero que también forman parte de esa intersectorialidad, pues como pueden ser museos, como pueden ser ONGs, en fin, otro tipo de entidades donde al final, aquí la idea es siempre que se le dé lo mejor a estos candidatos predoctorales, ¿no? Por lo tanto, que se le nutra de cuanto más formación posible y de cuanto más exposición a diferentes campos de trabajo en la medida de lo posible. Yo creo que eso es importante, ¿no? Además, es uno de los principios, esos famosos principios de formación doctoral innovadora en los que se basan estas redes doctorales. No sé, Jesús, si antes estábamos comentando el tema de no es obligatorio que quien esté en la empresa sea doctor cuando esté supervisando, ¿vale? Lo que pasa que efectivamente tiene que tener experiencia demostrable en el campo.
Sí, de hecho, incluso en las postdoctorales, ahora que acabamos de conseguir una de una empresa española, el supervisor no es doctor, pero es una persona que tiene experiencia y, bueno, siempre se apoya de un co-supervisor académico para complementar, pero sí, con que tengan experiencia en el campo y que puedan aportar al fellow, tanto postdoc como predoc, perfecto. Y lo que has comentado de la intersectorialidad, interdisciplinaridad, es al final Yo creo que más, a lo largo de los años nos hemos visto que cada vez las propuestas son mejores, son muy competitivas y al final esas décimas para la financiación es que tengan más empresas, que tenga intersectorialidad, que tenga sector no académico, que cumpla. Cada vez ahora tenemos unos nuevos hot topics, de hecho veremos nueva convocatoria cómo van a evaluar la inteligencia artificial y la robustez. Cada vez ya es más importante y yo creo que veremos cada vez más comentarios sobre la robustez. Creo que, Johan, vuestro proyecto sí que trata la inteligencia artificial, es un tópico que antes pues se comentaba, sí, bueno, tendremos seguridad en el tratamiento con inteligencia artificial, pero yo creo que ahora requerirá más, más desarrollo. Ahí, pues bueno, va evolucionando un poco el programa y súper importante. Sector no académico, como beneficiarios o como asociados. Muchas empresas hemos visto con Víctor que no les interesa una doctoral network, pero quizás sí como asociado. Es menos la involucración y menos los problemas para la empresa. Muchas empresas tienen problemas a la hora de contratar a los candidatos y prefieren estar como asociados o como participantes que no contratan, porque bueno, la contratación en determinados países siempre tienen que seguir la legislación nacional y bueno, ahora pues eso, contratos indefinidos o fijos, pues ponen situaciones que las empresas pues en lugar de participar como beneficiario, participan como asociado, pero tienen un peso y hay que plantearlo en la propuesta, ¿no?
Y luego que sea realista, ¿no? Que es lo que siempre decimos, pues podemos tener a una empresa como beneficiaria, pero luego hay que ver, o sea, al final lo que tiene que aportar el sector académico son muchas cosas, más allá de querer contratar a alguien, tiene que estar presente en la formación que se da, se tiene que ver que tenga esa responsabilidad, por ejemplo, ¿no? Es decir, que luego cuando miran los evaluadores qué participación y qué involucración tiene que estar ahí, no puede ser simplemente puesto así, pues, o metido a calzador, como decimos, ¿no? A ver, nos queda una preguntita que es más un comentario asociado a supervisión y a los fellows que se contrata como tal, que yo no sé si a vosotros os ha pasado o no os ha pasado, es una experiencia de una persona, ¿no? Que nos comenta esto, ¿no? Que él fue en primer lugar un fellow en una ITN y luego ha sido investigador en una segunda y que vio que había una baja implicación de los fellows. Y que en algunos casos los supervisores tuvieron que acabar escribiendo la tesis ellos mismos. Yo no sé si esto es algo habitual, no habitual, yo no, la verdad es que no lo había oído nunca, no sé si a vosotros os ha pasado, simplemente comentarlo, ¿no? Bueno, ¿cuál ha sido? Quizás Víctor, que también ha participado, ¿no? Ya tiene así como esa visión de varios, y bueno, Johan también, pero ¿cuál ha sido vuestra experiencia, ¿no? Además, Johan decía que son proyectos excelentes que por eso se siguen pidiendo, entonces, que me comentaréis un poco cómo lo veis.
Pues en mi experiencia ha sido muy buena, porque los candidatos que podemos contratar son muy buenos, vienen de todos los países del mundo. Hemos tenido estudiantes de países muy raros y muy buenos. Pero claro, si contratas 10 personas o 15 personas, puede haber, como en cualquier empresa o cualquier programa de doctorado, puede haber gente que trabaja mejor y gente que igual encuentran problemas. Esto siempre puede pasar, como en cualquier otra circunstancia. Pero en general nuestra experiencia ha sido buena. El único quizás problema que hay con esas redes es como montamos un programa tan extenso de cursos y de visitas y de intercambios. En total, en 3 años, a veces los estudiantes se quejan, y con razón, que no tienen tiempo de hacer su trabajo de tesis, porque fijo están trabajando, pero ese es lo que hay con esas redes, lo que tenemos que poner en las propuestas, pero en general son muy buenos y los estudiantes suelen ser muy contentos con esas experiencias de viajar, de conocer empresas, etcétera. Para mí funciona muy bien, pero claro, contratando a 10 personas siempre puede haber un caso de alguien que no rinda al 100% por cualquier circunstancia.
Bueno, en mi caso todavía no han empezado los estudiantes, entonces no tengo experiencia de cómo son. Pero sí de otras ITNs, de colegas que han tenido, de ahí han salido estudiantes muy buenos que ahora son profesores y han tenido RCs, o sea, normalmente al tener tan buenas condiciones salariales, los estudiantes que aplican son muchos, entonces puedes seleccionar bastante normalmente y quedarte con los mejores. Normalmente son buenos. El problema este, comenta Johan, sí que lo he oído varias veces, de que a veces llega el estudiante a un sitio y hasta, en lugar de trabajar, está mirando dónde se alojarán de aquí 3 meses porque vuelve a cambiar, y que se pasan más mirando eso, cómo va, temas de gestión de cómo haré la siguiente estancia, más que de centrarse en lo que están haciendo. Pero bueno, es lo que pide Marie Curie, ¿no? Movilidad, entonces hay que saber jugar un poco con esto. Lo que sí que nos hemos encontrado en estos 2 casos es que hemos tenido muy pocas aplicaciones, sobre todo en el proyecto este de almacenamiento de hidrógeno. Al final tuvimos 100 candidatos para 10 plazas, que no son muchos, pero es que 4 días antes del deadline teníamos 39, y algo dramático. De mis 2 proyectos, en uno conseguí, solo había un aplicante que no lo hemos evaluado y no era adecuado, y en el otro 3, entonces, y tampoco eran adecuados. Entonces, en este caso, yo ya he solicitado al coordinador de reabrir la convocatoria porque no tenemos. De uno de los proyectos sí que había un estudiante que como segunda opción pidió uno de los proyectos y es muy bueno, pero tendremos que ver cómo lo evalúan en el otro proyecto al que ha solicitado. Yo por eso les recomendaba lo de abrir la convocatoria cuanto antes, ¿no? Johan creo que ha dicho que la van a abrir en septiembre, es decir, el primer día que empieza el proyecto ya han cerrado la convocatoria, puedes escogerlos y eso es idealmente lo que conviene hacer. Porque en este otro proyecto, el 31 de diciembre, 31 de enero, están contratados, y europeos creo que la aplicación era un 2 o 3% de las aplicaciones eran de gente europea. Es decir, la persona que contratemos necesita una visa y esto lleva tiempo. Entonces, cuanto antes empiece la selección y todo el papeleo, mejor. Pues si no, luego vas sufriendo de si llega o no el papel y así puede empezar a estudiar.
Claro, bueno, ahí también recordar de nuevo el apoyo, ¿no? en las oficinas de proyectos para gestionar todas estas cuestiones administrativas, el apoyo a través de Euraccess, que muchos centros en España son centros de Euraccess, pero efectivamente lleva tiempo. O sea, todo este proceso administrativo lleva mucho tiempo, ¿no? Y no solo para contratar inicialmente, sino luego, como decís, también para las estancias posteriores. Vale, nos quedan 2 preguntitas y acabamos. La primera, ¿cómo se suelen cubrir los gastos de los secondment entre beneficiarios? El beneficiario que envía un doctor candidate cubre los gastos de fungible, etc, etc, etc. A nivel de gestión, los que ya habéis arrancado un poquito.
Bueno, yo diría que los gastos del viaje, la estancia, todo esto lo cubre el beneficiario, es decir, la institución que tiene contratada a la persona, al estudiante. El tema fungible no lo sé. Diría,
bueno, recordar que...
imagino que el que recibe, ¿no?
Claro, recordar que ahí lo que siempre se recomienda es, bueno, aparte de ese acuerdo de consorcio, los acuerdos bilaterales entre las instituciones donde se realizan las estancias para justamente gestionar este tipo de cuestiones. En base a ese acuerdo de colaboración se establecerán pues, los aspectos que procedan a nivel de gestión, ¿vale? Pero vamos, esto no suele generar ningún problema. Vale. Y luego, yo creo que esta es la última. ¿Es válido que los doctorandos contratados por un beneficiario no académico estén matriculados en un programa de doctorado de otro beneficiario de un país distinto?
Yo diría que sí. En nuestro caso, para la empresa Seismic, que están en Praga, solicitaron a una universidad de Praga ser parte o sea, ser associate partner, pero la carta de compromiso no llegó a tiempo. Entonces, lo que hicimos fue que ese estudiante sugerimos que lo haría en la UPC en Barcelona y en ningún momento se ha puesto ningún problema. De hecho, la carta llegó tarde y cuando estamos preparando el Grant Agreement, el Project Officer sugirió de incluir como Associate Partner la universidad local. Es decir, que bueno, pueden haber cambios posteriormente, pero la Project Officer nos dijo, creo que es más adecuado que pueda tener la universidad cerca de donde está contratado, pero no era imprescindible.
Fenomenal. Muy bien. Pues yo creo que con esto finalizamos. Un poquito tarde, 5 o 10 minutos más tarde, pero hemos cubierto todo lo que teníamos que cubrir hoy. Muchísimas gracias. No sé si queréis comentar alguna última cuestión, Johan o Víctor.
No, bueno, que se animen, que yo creo que merece la pena el esfuerzo.
Eso, y mucha suerte a todos los que vais a pedir esta financiación.
Bueno, y contar con gente que ya lo ha conseguido, ¿no? Y que explica que efectivamente pues, la persistencia es un plus, ¿no? Como se dice aquí, que no siempre se consigue a la primera, pero que en el propio proceso, ¿no? de aprendizaje se sacan muchas veces colaboraciones y cosas interesantes. Bueno, pues muchas gracias a todos. Esto, como sabéis, lo vamos a grabar, está grabándose, lo vamos a subir, tanto el vídeo como las presentaciones, a la web de Horizonte Europa. Os vamos a lanzar enseguida un breve cuestionario, como hacemos siempre para mejorar los servicios, y nos vemos en septiembre. En septiembre haremos otra sesión informativa de aspectos prácticos también. Recordaremos un poquito las cosas más novedosas de la convocatoria y os esperamos. Que paséis un buen verano y poquito más. Gracias a todos, a todas. Buen día.
Muchas gracias. Chao.
No, chao.